Hi, I'm Molly.
And I'm Jamie, and this is our From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast. As the owners of Hired Hand website software, we've been developing websites and creating internet marketing strategies for livestock breeders for the past 10 years.
The majority of our customers are involved in the breeding of registered animals, such as Texas Longhorn, Highland cattle, horses, and whitetail deer, where the pedigrees are very important. The From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast examines many of the differences in raising pedigreed livestock for maximum profit. Join us and learn what we're covering today.
Today I'm here with Savanna with Leonard New River Farms in Galax, Virginia. Thanks for joining us, Savanna.
Hello.
We were just talking a little bit before we got started, and we were comparing our cold weather. I think you have it a little worse.
Yeah, it's still below freezing here. We've been dealing with it for 5 days now. Everything I have is, my horses are in the barn. Our water is not working out there, and it's quite a job to have to thaw it every day. So we brought them in, and everybody's staying warm the best they can. And I think this week it's supposed to be up in the 40s or 50s. So it's starting to warm up. It's coming back around.
That's good. Then it'll just be a muddy mess, right?
Yeah. We're not looking forward to that, but it's always expected.
Well, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm 32. I'm 31 years old. I moved here officially about 4 years ago to be with my aunt and uncle. Before that, I grew up in South Carolina, the upstate of South Carolina in the foothills, and I went to North Greenville University. I have a broadcasting degree. Nothing to do with animals, nothing to do with cows. After I graduated, I stayed in South Carolina for a year and officially moved here in 2019. And then my uncle passed away in 2020, and for the past 3 years, I've been working with the cows.
So what brought you there? Was it the Longhorns, or was it just wanting to be back closer to family?
My whole life, I've spent a lot of time up here, and holidays, full summers. My uncle would have a driver for me after school. Sometimes I'd just come up for the quick weekends. So essentially my whole life for 30 years, I've been back and forth. And I fell in love with the cows. I fell in love with the horses. I loved my aunt and uncle, just their company. It was my second family. Essentially, they part-time raised me. So it's just kind of, it's always been what I've loved, and I've always been welcome here. And, close to 4 years ago, there was a spot that opened up on the farm, and they had me over, and stayed, and they hired me. And it's been like that ever since.
So for those folks listening who maybe don't know or didn't catch the name of your ranch or know who your uncle is, why don't you tell us a little bit about Tyson and maybe a little bit of the history of how or why he got started in Longhorns?
We're Leonard New River Ranch. We've been around for, I think, essentially about 30 years. It was a hobby ranch until close to 4 years ago. We decided we were going to move forward as a business. My uncle, he was a very successful entrepreneur. He owned Leonard Buildings and Truck Covers, Leonard Aluminum. They made truck beds and truck accessories and storage buildings. And I think he had over 50 stores by the time he retired on the East Coast. So he sold that in 2015, and he wanted to jump back into Longhorns and play. That's what he said. I'm going to retire and I'm going to play. And that's what he did.
So you mentioned that this was kind of like your second home growing up. When you would come out in your younger years, did he have Longhorns then that you would be around, or is this kind of your first experience with them?
Yes. No, I've always known Longhorns. I've always known horses. I've always known goats and cats and dogs and chickens. They've always been here. And they come and they go. There's different the style and my uncle bought what he liked, and that was okay. He And so anyway, I've seen all different kinds of things. I've seen Watusis, I've seen llamas, I've seen donkeys, all kinds of things kind of show up here. But my whole life has been involved with them. When I was little, we still have horses here. I have 9 horses now. He had 99, I think. That was his top number. He had 99 at one time. And I remember when I was little, we did horse shows, and I had a horse. Her name was Jetty. She was black and white. And she died when I was a freshman in college, so she lived a long time. And anyway, it's just, it's been like that forever.
What would you say your favorite part was back then of coming to the ranch and visiting your uncle?
Back then when I was a kid? Coming up when I was a kid? My favorite part of coming up here wasn't just to be with them, but also what they provided. So I love to ride horses. I didn't know much about the cows, I'll be honest with you. When I was little, what we did was we'd get in the truck and we'd ride around, and my uncle would look at the cows, and I would be there just throwing out the cookies and attracting them to the vehicle the whole time. That was my job, and to open the gates. He had a rule. It was the oldest rule in the West. The youngest opens the gates, and he stuck to that rule, and I think that was just so he didn't have to do it. And he never had to. He always had family and friends in the vehicles with him. He was very social. Everybody loved him. And so anyway, that is how I started in the Longhorns, really, is just riding through the pastures with him every day and feeding them and looking at them. And his favorite time of the year was calving season. He loved new babies on the ground. And that was always the exciting part, is seeing what you're going to get, essentially. Longhorns are just that way. Mm-hmm. And anyway, I just remember him, just having a really good time with him and riding around here. And I had a great childhood, great teenage years, great just coming up here and basically being able to do what you want, whatever you want to do. You want to ride horses today? You're going to ride a horse today. You want to ride with me with the cows? You're going to ride with me with the cows. But, and that's what we did. I was 10 and my uncle was, 50s, 60s in retirement age. So I got to tag along with him on whatever he did.
Let's fast forward to now. What's your role look like now? What's your favorite part now? Has any of that changed?
Oh, yes. So in the last 3 years, so my uncle passed away in 2020, and he had a lot of cows that just kind of my aunt inherited, and she didn't buy those cows. My uncle bought those cows. So she's like, well, what do I do with the cows? We have to, we're going to take care of them, but what do we do? How do you do it, basically? And so it turned hobby to business pretty quickly, and I stepped in and I took over the cows and the horses, and now I own both of them. And she's still here, and we're together, but the cows are completely off her shoulders. So that's where I'm at now. I'm the owner of the cows.
So tell me a little bit about how you kind of educated yourself and were able to take it from, someone else's quote unquote hobby to, making it into a profitable business. Cause that's not very much time, right? From when your uncle passed and when you had to get serious about this. And
it was so fast. And, it's kind of like a sink or drown situation. You start to find out what you're made of. Well, like I said, I have a broadcasting degree. That's what I was interested in doing. But then when I graduated, I didn't want to work for the news. So when I moved up here, I knew I wanted to work with animals. I just didn't know how to tie that with broadcasting because, I spent years in college, and I worked very hard to do what I have, and I don't like to waste those talents. I want to use that. So I know that these animals are market worthy. You can, with what we do, the Longhorn business is very different than any other cattle business. You do have to do a lot of marketing and a lot of broadcasting and putting it out there in front of people's faces and letting people see them. When you have commercial cattle, you don't really do that. It's in the Longhorns, it's more about the individual animal than it is as a herd. So that's the uniqueness of it, and that's what I fell in love with. And I figured, I can tie these two together and just try it. Just try it. And then it worked. We liked it. I found out what I was made of. It took a long time. It took a lot of energy. I'm still learning. I intend to learn for the rest of the time we're in this. And that's where I'm at.
So what are some of the lessons that you would say that you've learned?
Well, so, as a kid running around in the vehicle with my uncle and just looking at the cows, instead of looking at the cows, I needed to now know how the cow operates, because how are you going to make a business out of it if you don't know those things? So we hired the right people. We cut out the herd. We had too many numbers for the grazing property we had. It was either buy more land or sell some animals, and we chose to do that. And we're still selling, and we're now buying, and we're to the point where we're introducing new genetics onto the ranch, and we invested in the right bulls. I've had to learn how to do all of those things. I didn't know those things 3 years ago. This is still a learning experience for me. I'll continue to learn. I'll continue to ask the right people the right questions. But anyway, I think the biggest thing, which is the most critical thing, is how does this animal operate? How do I keep it alive? And how do I make a business out of them? That's what I had to learn.
Who are some of the people that have helped you along the way? Some of the folks that you trust to ask those questions to?
In the Longhorn business? A lot. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Or if you,
everyone
in Longhorns, or just,
I can't. There's no way I can name them all, because every one of them have been essential. Every single one of them. I know in 2019, my uncle had a partnership with Bill and Elizabeth Hudson with some bulls. So what I did, very first thoughts of it, I wanted to do this. They had me over. I spent a few days there. I took some pictures. I learned, how do you do what it is that you're doing, because you know how successful they are. And I came back with some notes, and ever since then, that put us on the right path. And I give them the credit for that. That's the first ranch I ever visited, first other cows I ever seen, first people I've ever talked to learn how to do this. And they were more than willing to help me. And, I appreciate that. That's why I am where I am now.
So let's talk a little bit about where you envision your breeding program in the future. What does the next year look like? What do the next 5 years look like for you?
So this year, 2024, the sales that we're going to be going to, I think there's 8 or 9 on our list. We're going to consign one of my uncle's favorite cows and an LTL heifer of my work, and start blending the two, and also honor him in the process. It introduces me and honors him. So I think that we're going to do that this year, and I think that's a really neat. We're also going to continue to participate in the fraternities and see where that goes and get our name back out there and just keep promoting our animals. We have really good animals. And, you know, I'll mention this too. When we started, it was a hobby at the time, so we needed to turn it into a business. So where do you start? You're plopped here. You're ready to work. Where do you start? And what we did was we had a bunch of cows with different calving seasons from, different parts of the United States. How do you get that together? And the first 40 cows that calved in spring to match our environment did it on their own. The first 40 are still here. So they could be 55-inch horns. It could be 93-inch horns. It could be solid white, solid red. Whatever you see that I have, there's a reason why they're here. And they've been producing for me ever since. So now we're to the point where I can move forward with some of them and also introduce what I've done with them in the past 3 years. So this year is really special to me. And then in the next 5 years, the animals that we bred will be mature cows at that time. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what that looks like.
So let's talk about a few of your favorites in your own pasture. And I feel like maybe you need to have two answers. One that would be of Tyson's breeding and planning, and maybe one of your own, since like you said, you have some heifers on the ground and younger animals on the ground now. So who would you say in your pasture is your favorite?
They always say not to have favorites, but I do have some, but the minute I think about them, they're all my favorites.
I feel like you have to, right? As hard as you try not to, everyone has a favorite or two.
Well, I will tell you this. I do have a 19-year-old Wyoming war paint one horn cow, and we just retired her this year. She has been producing just fine. And she's real gentle. And anyway, my uncle had her a long time ago, and he even writes about her in the history tab on my website. He said she was running through the pasture one day and just hit a tree and it broke clean off. So, when we got here, I immediately knew who she was, and she's never going to leave. She's going to die here, but she's not tame. She's my favorite, and she's beautiful. The color on her is just something you don't see very often, and she's pretty special to me, I'd say. Yeah. And then all of my LTL heifers are special to me just because I just know who they are. I know who all of them are. It's hard for me to tell you that.
How many of them are there?
I don't even know my exact number. Because I'm thinking first calf heifers, second calf heifers. We're that deep. So in the past 3 years, I've got first calf heifers, second calf heifers, replacement heifers, yearlings, and now weanlings. So three years of LTLs that we raised. I think I have around 30 to 40. I mean, that includes, that disincludes the weanlings.
So if you had to pick a cow in anyone's pasture, who would you say is your all-time favorite Longhorn cow?
Well, I tell you, she's here. She's my favorite cow I've ever seen. Her name's Sunhaven Morning Glory, and before my uncle passed, we went to one last sale. I think it was the Hudson Valentine, but they had it in Kentucky. I'm not sure. But anyway, it was Jay Walker's cow, and at the time I didn't know him, but I knew of him. And she was so gentle, and she's a beautiful, like, yellow dun color, head to toe. She's a 50-50 daughter. Beautiful horn set. She's 80 inches, but she's perfect. And I remember petting on her and loving on her then, and I heard my uncle say, "You want that cow?" I said, "Yes, I want this cow." And he bought her for, I think, $30,000 at that sale. And she's another one that probably stay here for a while. So, she's my favorite, my all-time favorite, hands down.
What about your favorite Longhorn bull?
My favorite bull of all time is different. His name was Diego's Hot Shot. He was a black bull. I remember when I was a kid, we'd be riding around throwing cookies out to them, and my uncle loved that bull. And at the time, he didn't have, we didn't have a lot of horn. At the time, he was longhorned for a bull, but I think he was close to 60 inches to today's measurements. But he was black, and I still have the image of him when I was a kid in the pasture back then. He's my favorite.
So for those of us who were fortunate enough to know your uncle, he always he seemed to always be making someone laugh. Whether he just had that kind of air about him where he just loved to joke around and was just always happy. So I feel like if you grew up with him and you spent that much time with him, you have to have some pretty funny Longhorn stories. Can you share a few of those with us?
Yeah, I always tell people I was raised a little bit differently than most people. He had the talent. He really did. He was a gifted socialite. When we would travel to cow sales, where we were, it wasn't always about the cow, it was about the people. So my uncle loved to see his friends. He loved to talk with them. He loved to joke with them. And every time we would travel, we would do that. And, he was a big Republican, conservative Republican, and you pretty much know who he would vote for every year. And everybody knows that about him. And he was, after a while, he would embarrass me because, I'm his family and I'm with him all the time. So I was like, I'd walk away when he'd start his little things. But he was, every time that would happen, I'm like, okay, I can't wait for this. Like, I got to get out of here. But now that it's no more, it's missed. It's just.
So there's actually a book about your uncle out now called The Ultimate High Roller. And it was written by your Aunt Tyson's sister-in-law. So I would imagine that also has some pretty good stories in it. It's a memoir, as I understand it, correct?
Yes, it's the best stories. I love the way that it's written. I like to explain it like, if you were to Google somebody on a wiki page and you click it, would tell you their early life and their career, their retirement, their personal life, their award, like things like that. It's in chapters, so it's made like that, so you can skip around, and it's really a nice book. It's easy to read. It touches everywhere from when he was born to his career to the gambling, which is huge in this book. That's what most of this book is about. It touches on the ranch. It touches on the cows. It's a really good book. And I heard the other day that it was sold out on Amazon, and I think you can buy it on Books A Million now. They have a stock of it, but they're having to print more because there's been so many sold. So it's successful.
That's awesome. A good tribute to him, hopefully.
And he was a part of it before he passed. He wanted it done, and it was his request. So she honored that. And
love what you're hearing? Be sure to check out our Pickup Truck Confessions. It's a video series where we hop in the truck or rental car and interview a variety of breeders about what drives their passion for their livestock, how they got started in the breed of their choice, marketing tips, and more. And now, back to the podcast.
Well, before we switch gears and talk a little bit about marketing and your website, is there anything else about your breeding program or anything about the ranch that you want to talk about more or share?
We're at the point now where we're going to have people over. You can come see our cows. Everything's the way it needs to be. We have new fencing, new water tanks. Everything's in their right age groups. Everything's on a breeding schedule, on a calving schedule, vaccination schedule, pregnancy check. Everything is just exactly where it needs to be. It's perfect. So, we're to the point where we're just getting started at such a young age too. We've practically been gifted with this operation, and we're very proud of it. We've worked very hard. We've trudged through the mud. We've cleaned out the bunks of snow before we have to feed. I mean, we have experienced the hard part of it, and we use horses. We have 9 horses that we use in the string here. We don't run anything. Everything's real smooth. We're horse breeders too. I have a breeding program in that. So we do some cow horse business, and it's right where it needs to be. We are right where we need to be.
So how far are you all from the sales in Culpeper?
4 hours.
Okay. So super reasonable. That'd be a great time, I would imagine. Probably not only a great time of year, but maybe as close as some folks get as well to be able to visit that part of the country.
And we go to the cherry blossom sale, and we go to the fall classic sale, and we support all of that. So yeah, we'll be there. We'll be there probably every single year. Yes.
Well, maybe you'll get a few holdovers that want to make the 4-hour trip to your ranch and see it as well.
Absolutely. And we're in a beautiful area of Virginia, Southwest Virginia. We live right on the New River. It's worth seeing. It's great entertainment. You'll never see stars anywhere like you see them here. I can guarantee you that. But yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your marketing and your website, and just the internet overall. What would you say is the average amount of time you spend looking at Longhorn websites in a week?
In a week, I'd probably say 3 to 4 hours in a whole week.
Is there anything specific you're looking for? Are you researching bloodlines? Are you just seeing sale consignments? What do you find yourself doing?
All of it. I just kind of we fell in love with this thing, and we like to see what other people we're caught up on our stuff. I know every animal on the property, so I like to know other people's things too. And we're getting to where we're thinking about AI in here, and maybe partnering. We're having some ideas on some future goals. So we're doing our research, and we're all over the internet, just looking and learning things. Facebook has been a really great resource for us when it comes to learning or selling anything. That's my ultimate go-to. I'm friends with, where I've joined every Longhorn group I can find. This is our life. This is what we do. This is what we like to do. This is in our hearts. So, I just I know my things. I'd like to know your things if it's out there, and it's one big education for me.
So you mentioned that you all might start AI work. Is that something that you would take the class for and take on yourself? Or do you think you would have someone else handle that? What would be your plan there?
Probably both. Right now we have someone else that does it, but I'd be interested in learning how it works and how it does. Yeah.
Can you remember the last 3 Longhorns you looked at in your search history?
Well, of course, I've looked at mine. I check my website almost daily, but through Hired Hand, I looked at Hired Hand a lot. And then Mark and I did the Dalgood Worm Predictor for the first time the other day, and I'm probably I'll be on that a lot more often. We looked at Heartbreaker. I think he's owned by Kurt Twining and Mark Hubble together. And then we looked at Lock and Load, Randy Murray, and HL Heads Up by Bill and Elizabeth Hudson. We were looking at all 3 of those bulls, and we're bull people. I just get obsessed with it sometimes, and I just go from one to the other, and it just amazes me what some amazing animals out there. And those are the 3 I looked at last. And we also did some research on Jester, which is Ophago's mother. She's really neat, beautiful, twisty horn cow, and I'm trying to pair him with the right females. And like I said, it's just all one big education for me. So that's why I looked at them.
So when you took the program over, I can remember a few phone calls we had back and forth with you and me, and some of them with Jamie, about your own hired hand website. Maybe talk through a little bit of where you saw the value in keeping that, and kind of if you enjoy using it, to, like you said, you look at it often for your own animals. Kind of talk to us about how you use that site.
It's really easy to use too, by the way. It's compliments to you guys. Y'all have done a phenomenal job. Our goal was to keep it colorful because you can't necessarily, we have this thing where we say you can't necessarily breed for color, but we are color people. We like color. My uncle liked color. That'll always be a thing. I think that's one of the most unique thing in the Longhorn breed is the color. But that's what I wanted to take on our website, make it colorful, make it attractive, and update it. Keep it updated. When something leaves, you move it. When something ages, you move it. Like we constantly keep it updated the way it's supposed to. So anyway, it's easy. I'll never use anybody else. Y'all are the best. And I mean that. And, some people's sites, which was ours at one time, kind of goes for a while, hardly used. And because when it's a hobby, you're not trying to sell anything. You're not trying to keep up with anything. It's just becomes your thing. But I wanted people to see what we had. Everything I have is on there. My one horn cow is on there just to be seen. Everything we have is there. And we're very impressed with the work that's been done here. Anyway, I just love it. I love our website. It's a good website, and it's constantly updated, colorful, and attractive. Those are the 3 words that I would describe it.
So do you have any advice for folks that are maybe also located kind of outside that, Texas, Oklahoma area? Is there anything you've done that's worked well for you marketing wise, or, using the internet to make more sales that you could share a story about or give advice to other folks in that situation?
Like being on the East Coast and trying to talk to people on the West Coast like that. That's hard. It's hard to do.
Yeah. Or you had mentioned.
Yeah. I think the easiest resource is Facebook, because there's so many groups that you can join, and everybody, and join all of them. Go join all of them if you want to do this. And then you get connected with people all over the United States, and you all have a common interest. So it's not hard to talk to these people. You will have immediate friendships, basically. Facebook is a great resource for me. And we've done a lot of marketing, but, we travel with a banner. We have cards. We have handouts. We did the calendar with the ITLA every year, the celebrity calendar. We try to stay relevant. And I think that's my biggest advice to anybody is stay relevant. Keep your name out there in front of people. Don't let people forget who you are, forget about you, if you really want to do it. And that would be my main advice.
Really good advice, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's all, you have to put as much work in almost every day as you do feeding, watering, moving the cattle. You have to put that same time into social media and marketing, and planning for
Absolutely.
your future events and all of that.
And you have to choose to do it too, because you have the time. You can lay in bed with your laptop and do your stuff, there. You have the time to do it. It's just, and it's okay. Everybody has a lot of different things going on, and it's a choice. But like I said, it was our choice to do it. We're going to honor it. We're going to actually do it.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of the cold winter weather to join me today. I really appreciate, and I feel like folks should be excited to see what the future of Leonard Farms has to offer for sure.